Good morning. Welcome back to Conversations at the Corner. Today is April the 8th. This is episode 64. We just came through Easter, had a great celebration on Sunday, and here we are post-Easter. Pastor Nathan, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Good. Last week, the question of the day focused on baseball season, and you said, I asked you what happens in April. You said spring, and you knew I was going baseball season. So today, I want to go back to the spring topic.
Okay.
And I just want to ask you, what is your favorite thing about spring? We are now a couple weeks into spring. So what is your favorite thing about spring?
I think it's that I really just enjoy going outside. Like I feel like, I can go take a walk, or I can roll my windows down. Those types of things are just really what's nice for me, is that now I can feel the breeze, the weather is a little bit good. Spring, usually you get more of those days that hover between 60 and 70, which is my perfect golden range. So you get a lot of those. So that's nice. I remember when I was living in Western New York, it would hit 35 degrees out and I would roll my window down. It's so cold up there. I'm like, whatever, we got a little sunshine. Let's go.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I think, of course, I love baseball season,
right?
And it kicks off at this time of year. But I think the warmer weather. Of course, I love wintertime. Yeah. But and I despise summer. So this is kind of like, hey, it's not cold, but it's not hot. This temperature is like near perfect. Yeah. So I do like that. I like that you can go outside and do some things and not like sweat within 5 seconds.
Yes.
Or have heat stroke. That's coming in a couple months. So I do like that. I like that you get the smell of fresh cut grass again, which has been gone for several months, because now people are cutting their grass. And
the pollen, that's always fun.
No, that's actually not. That's one of the drawbacks of spring. But we are in spring, and so we are getting to get some of those things.
Yeah, and the other thing I like is that the leaves start coming back on the trees. Fall is great. I love the colors. I think that's really cool. But after 4 or 5 months of just like trees with no leaves, I'm ready to see some foliage here.
So some new life.
Yeah.
New life. Yep. Well, we are in this 2-month series on culture and Christianity. And we here today on April the 8th, we're going to continue that, and we're going to have a couple more weeks of this after. We're going to round out March and April with this topic. So we've been through different things. Last week we talked about sports in our culture and how it collides with our faith and church attendance and things like that. So Pastor Nathan, where are we going to go today?
So what I wanted to talk about today is the issue of modesty. So this is kind of a hot cultural conversation, I think. Most of the time, this cultural conversation really revolves around women, what kind of clothes they wear, whether that clothing is revealing or not, what is appropriate for them to wear, and that sort of thing. That's where most of the cultural conversation is at. And to the degree, I think that that's a good cultural conversation to some degree. If you look at pictures of how people dressed in the 40s or 50s, like it's very clear that dress for women has gotten more revealing over time in some cases. And so I think there's a good Christian response to saying, is that good for us? Do we want that? What does it signal to people? Should we be doing that or not? So I want to kind of address that part of it right up front. And then I want to talk a little bit about some biblical passages that address this issue. Okay. And I think that we'll find that those passages address it from a bit of a different angle from what we have going on in the cultural conversation right now.
Okay.
So I want to start out by asking you a question. Okay. I want you to remember, if you can, so the first time, so when I applied for this position, we talked on the phone a couple of times, and then we did like a Zoom interview. I don't remember what I was wearing in that interview. I'm sure it was something business casual-y, whatever. But let's say I had, let's say that I had joined up on that Zoom interview, and I had a no shirt on, okay, And I had like my hair was just like wild and crazy and all that type of stuff. And I had no shirt, or maybe I had a shirt and like a gold chain. Okay, let's imagine that. Okay, guys. I don't know if you want this image in your head.
So I'm picturing you as like Tom Hanks in Castaway, or
Okay,
I'm picturing you like Mr. T.
Okay, yes.
Those are the two pictures.
Or like with a jean vest, like with a blue jean vest or something like that. No other shirt underneath. I think, now you can tell me, what do you think your reaction to that would have been?
That I would have said or that I would have thought?
Either one.
Okay. I don't know that I would have said anything, but I would have thought this is a waste of my time to even go through with this because this guy's not working for me.
Okay, great. Yep. And why is this guy not working for you?
Well, because if you don't have enough common sense to come to a job interview with at least a shirt on, if you got shorts on under the table and I can't see it, whatever, I can't see it. But if you have no common sense to come to an interview with like dress for the job that you want type of a thing, then I don't want you anywhere near me or this ministry.
Okay, there you go. But in that, what you have is this idea that there is an appropriate way to dress for a certain occasion. Now, if I were to go to the beach and I were to have no shirt on, no one would bat an eye at that, but that's normal. That's when you go to the beach, you do that. So most of us recognize that the way we dress, there's different ways to dress depending on the occasion, and how we dress signals a little bit of something about what we value or what we want or how we want people to think about us.
What we're trying to communicate.
What we're trying to communicate, right, exactly. So, when at the end of the day, I put on sweatpants and a t-shirt because I just want to be comfortable. There's nobody seeing me, right?
Yep.
I don't wear that in the office because there might be people here, and you, of course, have mandated that would be bad, right? So
yes, we do have somewhat of a dress code in our office. Yeah, we do.
Right. So, but I understand that there's different occasions require different dress, right? So I think one of the things that I want to kind of drive at with this conversation about modesty, and especially as it applies to women, is the very simple idea that what we wear does communicate things to other people. And we may not want to think that because in a lot of cases we want to dress just to look good or to feel comfortable or whatever, or that's the style. And none of those things are inherently bad. Dressing in a cool style is not bad. Being comfortable is not bad. But I think what we do need to recognize is that how we dress does communicate to other people. So if a woman, a young woman, an older one, whatever the case might be, if you're dressing in a way that is deliberately revealing, I think you do have to be aware that does communicate to other people, that you want people to see something revealing, whatever that might be. You want people to notice that. Or at the very least, you're comfortable with people seeing that and noticing that. The cultural conversation that we have going on, what I think has happened is this. In some cases, we have a cultural conversation where what girls get told is sort of like, you have to dress modestly. That's great. That's fine with me. But they also get kind of told maybe implicitly, like maybe not directly, but they're kind of told like, you are responsible for your fellow Christian brother or other people out there. You don't want them to be tempted. You don't want them to fall into lust based on what you're wearing.
Right.
I think that is also fine to some degree, but I also think it's important to understand that men, and of course the opposite could be, a guy could, I don't expect me ever to do it, but dress in like a super tight shirt or a tank top and like show my muscles or something like that, right?
Yeah.
The same could happen for a woman too. They could see somebody who's attractive and a man who dresses in a way that's trying to accentuate his attractiveness. But at the end of the day, it is let's just use me as an example. If I see a woman who's dressed in an immodest way, it's ultimately my responsibility to say, okay, I've got to turn away from that if that's tempting. I have to be responsible for me at the end of the day. Now, is there some measure of responsibility on her end too? I think so to some degree. I think you have to be aware that, maybe this could be tempting to somebody, and I don't want to do that to somebody. But I think the key in that conversation is kind of recognizing both ends of the responsibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the same, of course, goes like sometimes this cultural conversation has even gotten to the point where it's like you have these situations where a woman might, I want to say this in a way that works for a audience that, might have kids or whatever. Okay, there's kids here. If there's kids here, pause it. I don't know. If you have a woman who gets caught in a situation where she's sexually assaulted or maybe even raped, there are times when it's like, oh, well, she was dressed like this and she was doing that. And it's like, well, maybe the clothes do communicate a certain openness, but they should never be viewed as an invitation to do something immoral.
Yeah.
And of course, whatever man does that thing, he is responsible for what he does. You don't get to blame, oh, well, she was dressed this way. No, that's not how that works. Like, you are responsible for your actions. So I think that's one thing that for me, I want to make that distinction when we talk about this issue of modesty. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
I know I don't have daughters. So I'm not going to have to deal with this, at least in terms of a parent relationship. You don't either, so you don't have to deal with that either. But I think it is important to recognize that the clothes do communicate, and the ultimate responsibility, though, for temptation does lie with the one who is tempted or the one who does sin. But let's kind of turn our attention now to some of the biblical passages. These are really fun, I think, anyway. So I'm going to do 3. 2 of them are from the New Testament and one's from the Old Testament. I'm going to start with 1 Timothy 2, 9 through 10. Okay, so here's Paul. He's talking to Timothy, right? And Timothy is kind of like a protege in Ephesus. He's doing ministry. He's kind of teaching Timothy how to be a minister, basically. I'm simplifying it, but here's what he says. Starting in verse 8, just to give you a little bit of context, he says, "Therefore I want the men everywhere to pray, lifting up holy hands without anger or disputing. I also want the women to dress modestly, with decency and propriety, adorning themselves not with elaborate hairstyles or gold or pearls or expensive clothes, but with good deeds appropriate for women who profess to worship God." Okay. So that's kind of the key passage on modesty in 1 Timothy. If you were listening, you might have noticed something. The concern for him, at least, was not about whether the clothing was revealing, although I bet Paul would probably have not wanted the women to dress in a revealing way. But the concern there was, hey, don't concern yourself with, we got elaborate hairstyles. Now, I don't know what the elaborate hairstyles of the first century Roman women looked like, but I mean, we have them now. A person can have an elaborate hairstyle, so don't concern yourself with that, or gold, or pearls, or expensive clothes. A lot of what he's saying is modesty is not showing off.
Yeah, don't draw attention to yourself.
Right, don't draw attention to yourself. And that, I think, is actually where revealing clothes could fit in, because revealing clothes are generally meant to draw attention to some degree. So his concern is that you're dressing with a sense of humility in mind, not to draw attention to yourself. And then he kind of turns on that and says, but with good deeds. Like, that's what you want to draw attention to. Do good deeds. That's what you want people to see. Not your fancy hairstyle or your gold or whatever, but do that. Now, I also want to say one quick thing. I am not a fancy person, okay? Everybody who knows me knows I'm not. I don't dress fancy. I don't even wear watches because I don't like them. But I have known some men who are kind of fancy. There was one church that I went to where we knew a guy. There was a guy in the church who had a different suit for every Sunday, basically. And these suits were loud. Okay, I'll just say that, like, very bright, very unique. Very, like, you knew when this guy was in the service because you could see him.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like dog too hard on him. But the idea is that just called attention to him. And we always knew. I won't use his real name because I don't know if anybody from that church is listening to this. But anyway, if you're listening, you know who he is. Anyway.
They know who you're talking about.
But I think that idea applies both to men and women, that when we dress in such a way not necessarily to draw attention to ourselves, but we're dressing modestly with humility, that sort of thing. So I'm going to turn now really quickly to 1 Peter. And for 1 Peter, we're looking at chapter 3, verses 3 through 4. So if you're listening at home and you want to, stop all that type of stuff and look it up, that's fine. So I'll just start in verse 3. I think that'll just be helpful. Your beauty, and he's speaking to wives, your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles. Again, he's got that same idea. Elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight, right? So then he goes on and talks about a couple of other things. But Peter just reinforces that idea. What you should be known for, essentially, is your character. Who are you as a person? Not that you have fancy hairstyles and gold and, showing off and everything like that, but you're known for that. So I wanted to bring that one up just because it reinforces what Paul says. It's pretty much the same thing. Let's look at Proverbs 7. This one I'm going to try to kind of explain a little bit because the reference might feel a little bit weird. So the title, if you open up your Bible and you look at Proverbs chapter 7, there might be like a little title above it that's not part of the Bible, but it's something that the Bible company, whatever, decided they wanted to put on there. And this one at the top of chapter 7 says, "Warning against the adulterous woman." Okay, so it's starting in chapter 7, just starting in verse 1. My son, keep my words and store up my commandments within you. Keep my commands and you will live. Guard my teachings as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers and with them on the tablet of your heart, or write them on the tablet of your heart, Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and to insight, you are my relative. They will keep you from the adulterous woman, from the wayward woman with her seductive words. At the window of my house, I looked down through the lattice. I saw among the simple, I noticed among the young men a youth who had no sense. I always love that type of stuff. A youth who had no sense. He was going down the street near her corner, walking along in the direction of her house at twilight as the day was fading, as the dark night set in. Then out came a woman to meet him, dressed like a prostitute with crafty intent. Okay. I'll skip a little bit here. Then she took hold of him and kissed him. And with a brazen face, she said, today I have fulfilled my vows, and all this other stuff. She talked to him, whatever. Okay. What I really want to draw from that, okay, is she is dressed like a prostitute. And the reason why I draw that out is because I think it reinforces the earlier point that there are ways that we dress that communicate things. Now, I don't know what that looked like back in ancient Israel. Okay, and whatever she was dressed like might have been like not that immodest by our standards. I have no idea. Yeah. But she was dressing in a way that communicated, or the idea is that it communicates to this young man, I am available in this way. And so I want to really kind of underline that idea again through this biblical passage, that there is a presentational element to who we are. I think that all makes sense. I think you agree. That is the main thing that I kind of want to bring out. Okay. When we talk about modesty, there's two things. One is the possibility that we could dress in a way that does call attention to sexual temptation. But the other thing that the Bible seems to really focus on is the sense of dressing with humility. Don't just dress up to look cool. Don't dress up to draw attention to yourself, that sort of thing.
Because modesty is more than just covering up parts that need to be covered up. That's part of it, but it's also about humility.
Right. Yeah. So the tie-in that I want to bring here, Now, you and I have been around the Wesleyan Church for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that the Wesleyan Church used to do is we used to ban what fun social activity?
Well, I know what you're going for, but there's a couple of them.
Oh, we can list a few if you want.
Going to the movies.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then
I'm in real trouble.
and then dancing.
Yeah, dancing was the one.
Social dancing.
Dancing. So can you maybe tell me what the logic behind that has been in the past? Now, we don't have that ban anymore. So if you're listening right now and you want a social dance, you're free to, I guess.
As long as it's done modestly.
Modestly, yes. There are some kinds of social dancing we don't want you to do.
That's right.
But in general, you could.
Yeah.
What's the logic behind it?
I don't truly know because that was put in place long before I was born.
Yeah.
It's just something that we abided by. I went to private Christian school, so we didn't have dances.
Oh, okay.
We didn't have prom. We had a homecoming, but there wasn't a homecoming dance, and we had junior senior banquet.
So you all just stood around and looked
I didn't
at
go
each
to
other
it. I have no
awkwardly?
idea. I didn't go to it. But I wouldn't have gone anyway.
Okay.
I know I was in a couple weddings that like they had like a bridal party dance.
Yeah.
And I have like zero dancing experience. Now I have rhythm, so I could probably be good at it if I wanted to. But it was so uncomfortable because like, you know, you're paired up with this person for the wedding to walk with, and then there's this bride. So then you have to like dance with this person. So you not only don't know the person, you have to dance with them, and you're not a dancer. Like it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I assume that the reason was, I don't know this, but I assume it was kind of going back to dancing leads to immorality.
Okay, yeah.
And so to protect ourselves from immorality, we're just going to say no to dancing. Kind of like the alcohol thing we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Slippery
would be my
slope.
guess.
Kind of a slippery slope.
Slippery slope,
there,
yeah.
So
Something of the world, yeah.
The image that comes to my mind is it's like almost a cliche, but if you think about like a high school dance and you've got all these couples and they're dancing and you've got a chaperone, and let's say they're a Christian chaperone, they might come along and they might like push the boy and the girl apart a little bit, and they might say, "Make room for the Holy Spirit."
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
Is that dancing is okay, and I think you hit at this with when you talked about being paired up at a wedding with somebody that you don't know. One of the reasons that it's awkward is that dancing is intimate a little bit. Like you're close to somebody. You have to hold you have to put your hand on their shoulder or their waist.
Around their waist or their hand.
Right, or their hand or whatever. So it is a little bit intimate, I think, inherently, depending on what kind of dancing you're doing. So I think you're right. That's the idea. A lot of social dancing, whether or not it leads directly to immorality, it potentially could. And a lot of that kind of social dancing, you got to watch out for it a little bit.
Yeah. This just in from our producer, Richard Maddox, who
boy.
just put this information in my hand. I'll just read it verbatim right here. Wesleyans and similar Methodist tradition groups historically opposed dancing because it was viewed as, quote, worldly amusement, end quote, that inhibited spiritual growth.
Okay.
It was believed to inflame passions.
There we go.
Inflame passions, lead to sexual temptation. Okay, I said that.
Yep.
Or, quote, lust, end quote. I'm not sure why they put lust in parentheses. I think that wasn't needed. And break down moral inhibitions.
Okay.
Such amusements were seen as detracting from holy living and separating believers from God. Okay, so I got pretty close.
I think we're on the right track.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track. I don't think we really talked about the idea of it being like a worldly activity, but
I think I said jokingly something of the world.
Oh,
I think I said that.
Okay. So yeah, we were on the right track. But here's the thing. Here's what I found interesting growing up. So I grew up in kind of parallel worlds where when I was with my mom, I was going to the Wesleyan church and I knew they had the dancing rule. But the Jehovah's Witnesses, which I would go to with my dad, they did not have a dancing rule. And so at their weddings, oh man, I had some fun. Now,
Did you get out there on the dance floor?
Oh, see, not with the girls or anything like that, but I mean, they would play a lot of like 90s hip hop and fun songs.
Yeah.
Like, I would go out there and have some fun.
I would love to see you on the day. I just can't. I thought you would be like me, like a wallflower. You're like, I don't want any part of this.
It's so different in that environment. When it's a wedding,
Everybody's kind of out there acting
Everybody's
stupid.
just having fun and being silly. Yeah. So what I really saw, so in that parallel kind of world, those parallel worlds, when I would go over to the Jehovah's Witnesses, it wasn't leading to anything bad. People were just having some fun.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what they were getting out there, moving around, whatever. Nobody was twerking or anything like that. You know, so we were just having a good time, you know, like do the Macarena or whatever. You know, like who cares?
Yeah. Electric slide
or whatever. Yeah. Or just make up your own
the Macarena
stupid dance. You know? Well, that was the 90s. So
yeah,
kids,
I know. I love it.
Kids, if you're listening to this, you can look up the Macarena and you can learn how to do it. But that's kind of what I saw. And this was even before I was a Christian. I kind of saw that parallel world, those parallel worlds, and began to realize that if you make a prohibition on all dancing, then some of that fun stuff you can lose out on. And there are types of dancing that aren't necessarily intimate. Like if you do like some line
the Macarena.
The Macarena is not particularly intimate.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like people join dancing like
square dancing
or line dancing or whatever, like that type of stuff. That could be a lot of fun. So I think that's one of the things where like the prohibition on dancing probably makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if I were to think about, I'm going to go to a nightclub.
Yeah.
Let's say if I were going to do that, it might get me into some trouble.
Right.
Possibly. But if I'm going to go line dancing with my buds or my friends, you know, whatever, like that's probably not.
Or if you go to a wedding and they have dancing and you and Olivia wanted to dance.
Yeah, it's not going to be a problem.
Some family weddings I've been to over the last 20 years, there's been dancing at all my cousin's wedding. My sister had it. My dad was a DS at the time when my sister got married and there was dancing there. Now it was, you know, pretty normal, I think, like a father-daughter dance and a mother-son and couple first dance, all that. And then when Samantha and I got married, she wanted to do a first dance, and so we did it. I was very awkward and uncomfortable because not only was I dancing, but everybody was watching. Nobody else was dancing. That's the worst. And then it was really funny because after that, I was very strict, like, we're not going to – we might have done this is so bad. I really wish I could remember now because my mom's gone, but – I don't remember if we did a mother-son, like father-daughter dance. Now, I'll have to go home and ask her tonight. But I know we did a first dance. But at some point after that, like the electric slide started or the cha-cha slide or something. And like, I don't know if it was me or somebody else, but like it got shut down in a hurry because I was like nervous out of my mind because our reception was up at Parkway Wesleyan. So our reception was in a Wesleyan church. But anyway, let me tell you a funny story. You'll appreciate this. My cousin got married. He married a girl from Mexico, and I was in the wedding. So I flew down to Monterrey, Mexico for the wedding, and being a part of a wedding in Mexico was a completely different thing. First of all, like time does not exist.
No.
But the reception, we had I think we did did we do 2 weddings, like an English wedding and a Spanish wedding? Maybe. Anyway, but the reception was down, the wedding was upstairs, the reception was downstairs, and then it kicked off, man. And there were like bands that came in. There were 3 or 4 different bands that came in, and they played for hours.
Yeah.
Like 2 hours. My cousin who got married was drenched in sweat at one point. Well, they started like pulling people like out of the crowd and onto the dance floor and stuff. I was so nervous and uncomfortable. I went upstairs to the balcony and I pulled up a chair just enough where I could look over and watch what was happening. But I knew that I was safe from being pulled out there. I was terrified.
Safe from dancing.
Safe from dancing, yeah. And then another one of his cousins on his dad's side of it, because I'm from his mom's side of the family. So from his dad's side of the family, he must have felt the same way I did because I look over and there's Bryce up there with me. Bryce is a couple years younger than me, but we were both like hiding out upstairs because we didn't want to end up out there. So yeah, it was funny.
And it's interesting to me. I guess I don't have a way to chart this.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to know, has lifting the prohibition on dancing really changed anything for the Wesleyan Church or not?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because, again, I mean, at most, maybe you get some dancing at weddings. I still don't think a lot of Wesleyans are out at nightclubs or doing, doing what we would know to be probably bad.
I hope not. If you are, please stop.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a member.
Yeah, especially if you're
especially if you're a leader in our church.
Yeah, nobody on the board better.
I will tell you this. Of course, my grandparents, they would have all been, pretty against dancing, all that. And obviously, 3 of my 4 grandparents, my one grandpa died when I was like 7, so he obviously wasn't there. But my other 3 grandparents were at my sister's wedding and my wedding. And so, and my grandma on mom's mom, who is still living, she's about to be 91. She was at the other cousin's wedding, except for the one in Mexico. I don't think she went to that one. But, and there was dancing there. So, they handled it.
So
I don't know if they enjoyed it or liked it or appreciated it. But
we had kind of the same thing when Olivia and I got married. Her side of the family had no problem with dancing and alcohol or any of that stuff. We're all my side, we're mostly all Wesleyans and whatnot. So this was in North Carolina, and we did one of those things. It was kind of I understood why it happened the way that it did, but it was also a little bit like, this stinks. We did one of those things where we had a dance where all the couples get out on the floor, and then they say, okay, everybody who's been married under 5 years, you got to get off. And they try to get it so that the oldest couple is there. Well, my grandma and grandpa on my stepdad's side, they had been married forever, but they were Wesleyans and they didn't want to dance. And I understood that. So we had to have a thing at the end where like the last couple there wasn't even close to my grandma and grandpa in terms of how long they've been married. So after it ended, we had to kind of do a thing like we said, I don't know who said it, but somebody got up and basically said, hey, also, here's Helen and Mason Mills. They've been married forever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I understood why they didn't want to.
Yeah,
but,
for sure. Yeah.
But now, I guess if it had happened now, I don't know if they would or not. Because they just might not be comfortable with it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest, I bet I could ask him. I could call him and ask him, but I bet my dad was probably a little uncomfortable with that being at my sister's wedding.
Yeah.
And like him doing like the father-daughter dance with her.
Right.
He did it, and I think he did it because she wanted him to and to honor her, which I think was, as the dad, probably the right move to do.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, how comfortable he was with it. Yeah. I may have to call him and ask him.
He didn't do the cha-cha slide or anything like that.
I don't think so. But I don't know.
Maybe not. Yeah, I think that's one of those things that's kind of interesting. Some people even who go to Emmanuel may not be aware that we have had that in our history and we don't anymore. I think, as best as I can tell, lifting the ban on dancing has been fine. Yeah. I don't think it's really changed much.
Yeah.
But that's all I got for today.
Okay. So we covered modesty and we covered
a little dancing.
So, well, thanks for joining us today, Pastor Nathan. Thank you for leading in that discussion. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. Let me pray for you as we close this out. Lord Jesus, thank you for this day. Thank you for this time together. Lord, thank you for your direction to us with things like modesty and even how we celebrate. Lord, we know that you created dancing. It's in the Bible. David danced before you. There's other examples of it. God, there are churches that use dance as a part of worship. So God, I do believe that there is a place for that. But like everything else, Satan has tainted it and destroyed it. And so God, I pray that we would have wisdom in knowing when to participate and when to not. So Lord, thank you for the gift that is, but thank you for the wisdom that you've given us to exercise as well. Lord, be with our listeners today. Help them to have a great day and to be great ambassadors for Jesus in everything that they do and say today. In Jesus' name, amen. Join us next week, same time, same channel. Keep rolling, Emmanuel.